Welcome back to the Ivy Unleashed podcast. I think this is Brooke and our favorite day. Jesse Golden is back on Ivy Unleashed. Welcome back. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to see you guys. And congratulations on everything. I'm so excited that you guys are like accomplishing your dreams and going after it and doing all the things. So I'm so honored to be here again.
Oh, that means so much because we look up to you, Jesse, in so many ways. Like doing business and watching someone that is so aligned in her truth, her values, makes the world a better place with the environment. And you're just so conscious of every move you make in life. And when it comes to the health world, you know, Brooke has dealt with a lot of chronic issues that like you address on a daily basis, like ideas for us and beautiful ways to kind of shift your perspective when you're going through hard things. And so we're just so grateful that we get time to talk with you. It is so valuable.
So much. And I always say it takes one to know one. So I always am so honored when people see the value and like it translates on social media because sometimes I don't know. But I always feel like, you know, the good ones get it.
Yeah. Well, you give so much value. And something we want to talk about today is so huge. The last time we talked with you was in 2022. Mm-hmm. And a lot has happened in your life since 2022. It was like exactly 2 years ago when we talked with you. And to watch your journey as you now have a baby boy in your life, and you gave us the inside view of the journey to get him. First, what is his name? Beowulf? Did I say it right?
Beowulf, yeah.
Beowulf?
Yes. It's the most unusual name. I think there's like 2 other people in the world that have it. But my husband always loved that name. It's actually like the first English poem ever written. Even before the Vikings, but it's about a Viking, but was technically a Geat, I guess, back then. And he's kind of like this dragon slayer hero. There's been like some goofy movies made of it, and I think they're doing like another one very soon. But my husband told me that's what he wanted to name the baby, and I was like, "You are insane! Like, we are not naming the baby Beowulf. Like, that is like insane." And I completely wrote him off. And then when I got pregnant, I was like, "This baby is Beowulf. Like, there is no other name for this child."
Wow. And you posted a 40-minute video on YouTube. And I just want to say that to everybody because we're going to talk about infertility. We're going to talk about miscarriage. We're going to talk about the journey to get to Beowulf because it's not an accident that he's here. It was a lot of intentional choices and a journey and tears and heartbreak. And so many women that are listening have either been through this, they're in the midst of this, and it's an emotional thing to talk about because people I love so much in my life are in the midst of it. And so when I say I'm grateful that you're here to talk about this and that you're sharing, you're not gatekeeping anything that you did, it's so powerful. And I wish more people did this because something that you say could be the answer for someone else, or the drive that you had, the hope that you had, the mindset that you had, sharing that and reflecting on it is so powerful. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm probably going to cry the entire time.
Shocker.
But you have a miracle here, and it's because of your heart and drive and hope and want and support of your husband and so many pieces we're going to get into. So first of all, congratulations that he's here. How is he doing?
He is amazing. Like, he's just, me and my husband, we basically almost cry every day. Like, look at this baby. Like, you know, because we dreamt of him for so long. And now that he's here, I'm like, everything's just making sense. I'm like, this is why we met, was to bring this child. Like that, like we're getting so every day, we're just like, we were supposed to bring him into the world. I mean, he's so magic. He is the happiest baby. He lights up the room. He's a powerhouse. He's completely different than my first son, who's now 20. So it's so interesting to like see the dynamic and see how different children can be. And, you know, it's just the coolest thing. So he's doing amazing. Yeah.
And to put in perspective for everyone listening who hasn't been following your journey, how long did it take to bring Beowulf to the world?
So a little over 4 years. We started trying during COVID, like so many, just hanging out. My husband, maybe we should start trying. I'm like, trying what? Trying to get pregnant. And I was like, oh yeah, we probably should, because I had my first son. I got pregnant at 25. I had him at 26. And since then, like so many, I'm sure I've had so many friends have a hard time getting pregnant. And I witnessed so many of my friends try for years and end up having to do IVF, not all of them, but a lot of them. So in my mind, I was 41 at the time, and I'm thinking, we're probably going to try for a year. I remember my doctor actually saying, if after a year, like this was years ago, but I remember him saying, if after a year you don't get pregnant, circle back. So we just started trying, and we actually got pregnant the second month. And we were so excited, and it was just like dream come true. We did the whole thing. I'm an influencer, so of course I'm recording everything and like sharing these amazing moments. I didn't share it publicly, but I mean, I had intention to. I didn't share it publicly at that point. And we miscarried at 8 weeks. So then I was like, okay, I didn't think this was going to be in my story. Like, I feel like my story is pretty full. I didn't think I needed to add infertility to it as well. So I was like, okay, all right. Well, the good news is we got pregnant. So let's just get back on the bandwagon, try it again. We got pregnant the first month again. And I miscarried again at 6 weeks. So I was like, okay, I need to go get figured out, see what's going on. I have rheumatoid arthritis, for the listeners that don't know. I was diagnosed when my first son was 4. So this was something that I didn't have when I was pregnant with my son. So I thought, okay, maybe my pregnancy, but most importantly, I just thought it was my age, because there's so much talk about what they call geriatric pregnancy, which is after 35. And here I was 41. So I went and saw my doctor. And this is the first step that I would recommend to everybody. Just the technology that they have now with a simple blood test. You could get your AMH levels tested just to see where you're at. Like if you want to freeze your eggs, like if it's pretty low and you don't have a partner yet and you definitely want to have kids, like maybe you should look into maybe freezing your eggs. These are things I never looked into in my life, because to be honest with you, not that I was against IVF, but I just didn't think it was going to be in my cards. I thought it was like very sci-fi, too medical. I gave birth to my first son at home naturally, and I did everything natural, and I just didn't think it was in my cards. But my doctor said, all my levels came back amazing. My AMH levels, which would make sense because I was getting pregnant very quickly. So all my levels were fine, but she said, because of your age, it might be a chromosome issue. And I don't know the exact statistics, but I feel like it was like after 35, like 1 in 7 eggs are actually healthy or something. Like it's a very low number. So she said, why don't you go to an IVF doctor and just like see what your options are. She said the greatest thing about IVF nowadays is like if they retrieve your eggs, they can actually test the embryos, like, and make sure, so then if you're putting it back in, you're only putting in the good ones. So you're less likely to have a miscarriage and have to go through all that trauma. So at the same exact time, my husband booked this job, which is why we're in Canada right now. And he had to go to Canada for a couple months. And my anxiety started to go. I was like, my clock is ticking. My husband's going to leave for 6 months. I don't have 6 months. Like, we need to do this. And I asked my doctor, I was like, can I get pregnant if my husband's out of the country? And he was like, I can't tell you how many times I've been asked that question, like husbands traveling overseas or whatever. So I started easing more into the idea of maybe this is the way to go, because the trauma of the miscarriage, and I just felt like I was running out of time. And so I for sure thought at that point that it was a chromosome issue. Nobody was saying anything about me having rheumatoid arthritis. Everybody knew I had rheumatoid arthritis, but nobody was addressing it. Like there was no markers or anything that was very obvious that they would look at. And this is where I think it gets tricky. I'm so grateful for IVF and science, but I think there needs to be some changes, because women are literally put through a conveyor belt and everyone is basically treated the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so many women go through dozens of cycles of these drugs that are no joke and have serious side effects, and loss after loss after loss. And they're just like, they're not trying other things. So, and this is where I just get goosebumps. I mean, I was relentless with my research and seeking help. And I can't talk more about these Facebook groups that I found of women, these IVF warriors that I would go on, and these women would be like, I'll hop on a phone call with you. Women that had been through this journey, some of them for, oh my God, 7, 8 rounds of IVF. And, they've tried it and done everything. And I was getting a lot of pushback, like when I would talk to my doctor about some of these things I was learning, which I think everybody can kind of relate to. Anytime you bring up any kind of holistic or diet, conventional doctors are kind of like, that doesn't matter, that doesn't matter. But intuitively, I was like, this matters. Like, I was just like, something else is going on. So I'm kind of jumping here, but basically we did the egg retrievals. We did 2 egg retrievals, and a lot of people want to know how old I was at this point, because this is pretty old for doing egg retrievals. I was 41 and 42. And we did 2 egg retrievals, and between those 2 egg retrievals, we got 3 healthy grade A embryos, and they were all boys, because a lot of people thought I was having a girl. That was never an option. I got all boys.
Meant to be a boy mom.
Meant to be a boy mom. And we did the first transfer, and it failed. We did the second transfer and it failed. And I mean, when I tell you this was traumatic, like, my husband was in Canada. I had to go there by myself. It was in the middle of COVID, so he couldn't come with me anyways. It's very like medical. It's like just awful. And the second time I found out that it didn't take was actually on my birthday, to make it even worse. So I was home alone by myself, finding out. And now I'm like, I have 1 embryo left. I have 1 embryo left. This is it. What am I going to do here? And I think a lot of women feel like their clock is ticking. So they want to rush into another cycle, and they want to rush into another transfer. And I think because I had 1 embryo, I was like, I have to like sit back. And this is where everything changed for me. I found a reproductive immunologist, where I forgot how many are in the country. I think there's only about 5. And they test for things that like regular IVF doctors don't test for. And it was a 4-month waiting list. They treat remote. I was able to take a phone call. They did the blood test. It was the most devastating phone call I think I've had, other than them telling me my transfer didn't take. This is where I was told I had a 3% chance of a live birth if I didn't do this protocol. I got off the phone. I was crying hysterical. It just felt like I had to climb Mount Everest in order to have this child. Like, I was like, because it was like, you need to do, the protocol was insane. I mean, I talk about it in my YouTube video. We went to Tijuana twice to do this procedure called lip procedure, where they take my husband's blood and they spin it and do these things and then re-inject it into me. I did IVIG, which is like a really intense immune therapy drug that they use on like AIDS patients and stuff like this. I mean, and a lot of this nothing was covered by insurance. We're paying out of pocket. I mean, it was just insane. So basically, they monitored me doing this entire protocol for, I think it took about 4 months. And finally, they said, okay, you're cleared to do the transfer. And I think the biggest point that I want to get across here, and I'm so freaking excited, you guys, because I cannot tell you how many women have called me and are now pregnant because they went and saw my reproductive immunologist after years of trying IVF and trying the same thing and it not working. They just do the same protocol for everybody. For me, it was obvious now that I'm looking back. I have rheumatoid arthritis. So my body was seeing the embryo as a foreign object and rejecting it. That's the bottom line. It was just fighting it off, right? So a lot of women, even if they don't have a known autoimmune issue, they could have high natural killer cells, which basically attacks the embryo before the placenta can take over. The placenta takes over like between 10 and 12 weeks. That's why like you're less likely to have a miscarriage after that point in time, because it helps modulate the immune system. Okay. But before that time, if you have high antibodies for anything, it's you got to bring all those inflammatory factors down before you could do a transfer, before you could try naturally. So that was my golden ticket. And I still wasn't out of the water. I mean, we found out we were pregnant, and then it was like the first 20 weeks, I was really my own advocate and my own doctor. Like, I talk about this drug that I took, and none of my doctors told me to do it, and I just did it my own research. It's called LDN, low dose naltrexone, and there's been great studies for fertility in Europe. It's still not really used here a lot. I'm still taking it. I really think that was a huge factor in me having a healthy baby, and I was able to do it at home naturally like I wanted to and everything. So it has been such a journey, and I just I can't tell women enough, like, you have to be your own advocate. You know, doctors have so many patients and they have so many things going on, and you have to use your intuition. You have to be your own advocate. You have to talk to other women, and you really have to fight for yourself. Like, had I not done that, I wouldn't have Beowulf right now.
Yeah.
100%.
I keep just thinking the hope that you had, the determination, the will, after being told 3% chance, after call on your birthday. Like, how did you keep the hope alive? Devin's gone. You're by yourself. I'm just imagining your mental health during this.
Oh, I was a mess. So I had been, I was put on birth control when I was 15. And I was pretty much depressed from like 15 to like 23. And then I realized, oh, maybe it's the birth control. Took myself off birth control, and it was like a weight had been lifted. So when I made the decision to do IVF, I made a note. I even talked to Devin. I said, I'm not good on hormones. Like, I know that. So I'm a little scared. But as long as I know, like, I might be a little crazy. I might be a little depressed, but hopefully it'll pass through. Like, you know, I'm just going to go through a little roughy time. The fact that you're going through the most challenging thing in your life, like having miscarriage after miscarriage or mistransfer, you know, not having a good transfer, and then you're on hormones on top of it. So I didn't feel like I had the tools like I normally had to cope. So it was the hardest time of my life, the darkest time of my life. I was depressed for the first time in my life. I mean, I literally lost my mind. There was days where I was like telling my husband he should just leave me. I was like, you know, honey, you know, he's 5 years younger than me. And I'm like, you know, honey, you should just, I'm fine if you want to find a younger wife and just have a baby. And his nickname that I've given him is called Timber, because he's like he's a tree that does not move. And I can tell him the craziest things. Like I visually remember this moment where my hormones were insane and I was crying and I was telling him to leave me. And he's just like, "Are you done?"
Oh.
Honey, I'm not leaving you. I love you. We're going to have our baby boy. He was so steadfast. And I was like this. And I think a part of it was almost a blessing looking back that he was here and I was in California and he wasn't going to all these appointments with me and stuff like that, because they weren't like happy appointments. They were, so he was maintaining this very hopeful vibe. My oldest son was with me, thank God. And there was actually times where he had to help me do some of these injections and shots because it's just insane. Like there's one that you have to do a progesterone shot, like at the top of your bum, basically. And I literally couldn't reach back there. And he was scared of needles. And like, he totally overcame being scared of needles. And it was like 9 a.m. I have to give mom her shot. And he was just like, he just like grew up overnight, like seeing me go through all of that stuff and being there for me. So to answer your question, like, there's no way I could have done it without like the support of my husband and my son. And man, I was tested more than I've ever been tested in my life, like just trying to maintain that hope. And then also with social media, I don't share things as I'm going through them most of the time because it's so vulnerable. So I waited kind of till after I was through the weeds. So during that time, I was still maintaining social media as if everything was okay. And that was challenging too, because I had to, I'm running a company and I have to keep my livelihood going. So, I was in some of my darkest places and nobody knew,
There's so much weaved into that though, because when we look back and we think of you during that time, it's almost like you poured into others during it. Like you're providing your value with your products, you're providing tips for people, you're still getting outside, you're doing things and you're showing what's helping you. Maybe not saying your story specifically, what you're exactly going through, but I feel like you still found a way to have purpose throughout it and provide value for your followers. Like there wasn't a miss at all from anybody that was observing from the outside. But something I keep thinking about in the midst of this, and you mentioned intuition a lot. And I think when you're talking about everybody's story being so individual and their own body and their own experience, or like for you, rheumatoid arthritis, like listening to your intuition in the midst of needing specialists, needing these people of authority that are literally dictating what you're going to put into your body. How do you balance listening to yourself, advocating for yourself in the midst of truly knowing you need medical intervention?
I kind of do the same thing every time. I research things like a freaking maniac. And I'll give you an example that I just remembered and I haven't even shared on my YouTube video. But if a doctor's like, okay, I want you to try this medication, or you need to do this medication for IVF, or whatever it is, I research the heck out of it. I empower myself and try and gain as much knowledge as I possibly can, weigh the options. And then I'm like, my intuition lights up or it doesn't. Like I'll usually know, and I'll tell you where I dodged a bullet. So I originally had a doctor, my first IVF doctor. I switched doctors basically. So I originally had this first IVF doctor, and he did, they do this test where I forgot what the test is called, but they basically see if you have like endometriosis or any kind of inflammation, which could also make the transfer not work. So after the first failed transfer, we did that. And of course it came back as inflammation. So he's like, you have endometriosis, you need to take Lupron for 3 months, and then we'll try again. And I'm like, whoa. I don't have endometriosis. I'm like, I don't have any symptoms of what are you talking about? Like, I've never had a painful period. My cycle has been regular my entire life. Like I've been very lucky with like my menstrual situation. Of course, I said to him, of course I have inflammation. I have rheumatoid arthritis. I have inflammation everywhere. Like that's not a marker, you know. So then I looked up what Lupron is. Lupron puts you in menopause, and they put a lot of IVF patients on this because they think it calms the immune system or it calms the inflammation, especially if you have endometriosis. Then they bring your period back through drugs and then do the transfer. And a lot of women actually have success. Well, I found a group on Facebook called Lupron Victims. And this drug is probably one of the most horrific drugs on the planet. It's actually one of the drugs that they're giving young children that want to change sex, and it's irreversible. The side effects are lifelong. I'm talking bone loss, hair loss, pain, arthritis. I mean, you name it. They just had a lawsuit and where they had to give away $900 million, and the drug is still on the market. So I said to him, you're out of your freaking mind. I'm 42. I'm not putting myself into menopause. That is like the most asinine thing I've ever heard in my life. Like this my intuition was like, ugh, no way. And for anybody that's being told to go on this, go find that Facebook group. It's called Lupron Victims, I think it's called. And then I found my reproductive immunologist, and this place only worked with certain doctors because, like I said, a lot of doctors are very conventional and they don't believe in reproductive immunology and they push back. And there was one doctor listed, which was at my same facility, that actually works with my reproductive immunologist. So I was like, perfect. I'm switching to him. I didn't have to leave facilities because once you have your embryos somewhere, you don't want to like leave because you have to pay all this money to move them, and it's a nightmare. So I just switched doctors. I stayed at the same facility, and he worked hand in hand with my reproductive immunologist. And he's such a sweetheart. And he was who I needed. I'm not saying the other doctor was bad at all. I'm just saying I think that's also important to be on the same page with your doctor. And this doctor kind of reminded me of my dad. He was just like comforting and so sweet. And he would say things like, don't worry, honey, the uterus never ages. Like he'd say things like that to me where I was like, yeah, like, you know, I needed to hear that. So as far as intuition goes, that's my kind of protocol is do as much research as you can, and then, you know, tune in and listen to yourself. You know, it's kind of like the kinesiology. Like, you know, have you guys ever been like muscle tested or something? Like, kind of tell you like this feels right or this doesn't, and a doctor can't do that. You know, sometimes they just go with the protocols and they go with statistics, and you know, we're not all statistics.
That's gotta be hard though too when you're like, is this my body right now? Because I've got so many hormones and stuff going through it. Like, can I trust what my body's telling me?
But it's also the research.
Yeah.
Right? For you to not just say, okay, yes, you're a doctor. I believe everything you say, but all right, let me do my own research. I think when you're in that, and just speaking from my experience, a doctor recommends something and you're like, oh yes, like this could be the thing. But what I've learned is, okay, pause. There's a lot of options. Learn about what you're putting in your body, care about what you're putting in your body. And then Jessie, I'm sure for you, you're reading these statistics, this Facebook group, and you're like, okay, alert, alert. Like once you read something, you can't unlearn it. And that also dictates, I think, and affects your intuition, seeing that information.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, for sure.
Wow. So you're in the darkest time. You're by yourself. You're trying to decide what to do. And what I want you to expand a little bit more on is you wanted to kind of detox before you did this last transfer. Is that the word, transfer?
Yeah, well, that didn't really happen. So I'll tell you, so I detoxed before we started trying back in like was it 2020? So I did like a 6-month detox before we even started trying.
What does
So
that
I was
mean?
like,
Yeah, tell us what you do in your detoxes.
well, so I also had 2 hand surgeries back to back. So I had a miscarriage, and then I had another miscarriage, and I said, you know what? Maybe this is the universe's way of telling me I should have my hand surgery before I try and have a baby. So I quickly did 2 hand surgeries back to back, which is so intense on the body, going under the whole Twilight thing, you know, and I'm very sensitive to things. So after I did the hand surgeries, I completely detoxed. And it's just like I was eating really good. I was doing my coffee enemas a couple times a week. I was doing my sauna, my dry brushing, gua sha, lymphatic drainage. I wasn't really putting anything bad in my body. I mean, I was just on a complete goal to like rid my body of the stuff that was in there from the hand surgeries. And I can't remember if I had to go on antibiotics or not. I think I did pain meds for like 2 days because I was like, I don't even want to, you know, I was just very careful, but I did go under, you know, so that's intense. But the funny thing is when I actually got pregnant, like the protocol from the reproductive immunologist was completely opposite to what I thought. I was all of a sudden I'm like putting all these drugs in my body. Like I'm like this, like, so it was it felt counterproductive, but at the same time, there's this term in IVF where you just like you're throwing in the kitchen sink. Like you have one embryo and you are going to throw in the kitchen sink. You're going to do everything. So, you know, I was, you know, doing this IVIG, I was doing all these things that like I felt so counterproductive, but it's actually what my body needed to um you know, be able to carry a child. I was able to get pregnant, but I just wasn't able to maintain the pregnancy. Saying that, I was doing the Weston A. Price diet. I was doing everything else that I could, that I had control over, that was keeping me sane and healthy, yoga and walking and, you know, all my things that I do. So I have yet to detox, and now I'm still breastfeeding. So I'm like, when I'm done breastfeeding, I was just telling my husband, I was like, I can't wait to do a parasite cleanse, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But, you know, right now it's like, I'm just, you know, obviously I'm healthy because I'm breastfeeding. So I'm eating really good and stuff. But I am excited to like, you know, because those IVF drugs and everything it's intense. It's a lot. It's a lot on your body.
Yeah. I love too the surprising route, right? That you have something in mind, but it just to have to go along this journey and it surprised you in so many different ways of what you thought it would be or what it turned out to be. The routes you had to go. I mean, in this YouTube video, you showing you guys crossing the border, like going into Mexico. I like, what are we doing? Like, it looks like you're undercover. You've got like a hoodie on and like, you can just tell from your faces that you're like, what are we doing? I don't know, but hopefully this works, you know?
I don't think I shared this in the video, but I'll tell you guys. So we showed up at this place in Tijuana, a car that they sent us a picture. They're like, this license plate is going to pick you up. So we just hopped in this car. We end up at this like little medical facility, like in the middle of nowhere. And there's all these other couples in there. And they take all the men's blood and like nobody really spoke English. So they were like getting husbands messed up. And I was like, honey, make sure your name is on those needles. Like,
Oh my gosh.
and then they're like, okay, come back in 4 hours. And we're like, okay. So we actually made friends with another couple, and thank God they had their shit together because this lady's like, I found this restaurant we're going to go to. And so she was like our mom for the whole day. So we went to some restaurant with them and we just kind of like talked. We shared stories. It was really nice actually to like talk to another couple that was going through it. Come back 4 hours later, and now they're just re-injecting these random needles into my arm that I hope is my husband's stuff. Like it was just like it was such a hit or miss. Like we're like, this is so crazy. But the coolest thing about this is so it's called lymphocyte intravenous therapy, I think. And it's basically like a husband vaccine. That's the only way I can explain
Yeah.
it. So the embryo is half my husband, half me. Let's just say in theory, my body was rejecting his half because it's a foreign object. So the whole concept is to introduce like his part to me. So they inject it into your arm in like several places, I think 8 places on the forearm, and it's kind of like an allergy. I got an allergic reaction. My arms were red and itchy for like 2 weeks. But there's a way to test this, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think I was at like an 8, and they were like, we want to get you at like a 50. So we had to go to Tijuana twice. We did it twice, and we tried to make the best of it. We stayed in San Diego. We made like went to dinner, and we tried to do a whole fun thing about it. But after the second time, my levels were like past 50, and they're like, okay, you have 6 months to try now. So it actually lasts 6 months, and it's legal. I think here in Canada, Australia, and Mexico, it's illegal in the United States.
Wow.
But
That's another thing too. You had to trust your intuition. Like, I'm going out of the country for something that is illegal here.
Why is it illegal here?
Who knows? I think maybe because they can't. I think because it's like a husband's stuff that they can't like necessarily make money on it. Like it's not like a separate drug. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. But I did talk to a woman from that group who had done it. I talked to several women, and a lot of people did it, and they said it sounds crazy. It is a little crazy, but it worked. And I was like, it's all I need to hear.
Yep.
I'm going. We're doing it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Wow.
It makes sense to me. It makes sense.
Yes.
Like, the whole concept, I was like, this is pretty fascinating. So, yeah, it was an adventure. For sure.
Let's talk about bringing Beowulf into this world. So you had already done a home natural birth 20 years or 19 years prior. And now it's time you're finally pregnant. You go through your journey of being pregnant. You love being pregnant so much, taking the videos, and it's just so fun to watch. You can just tell that is like your jam is being pregnant.
I be pregnant all the time. I love being pregnant. Like
You give me so much hope.
Oh, I feel the most beautiful. It's like the coolest, most magical thing on the planet, I think.
Yeah, it is wild. Like if you truly even now I've been pregnant. Well, I've been pregnant 4 times. I did have a miscarriage between my second and third child, but like it feels like a dream now. It feels like, did I even do that? Like so much, and you're living proof. So much has to go right to have, and so then it gives you perspective. We are walking miracles. Like it sounds so cliche, but so much has to go right, and you don't realize it until you've had loss, and you're like, oh my gosh, it so easily can go wrong. And so you carry this baby for months and months and months. And then how did you know it was time? Can you just kind of walk us through what that home birth was like, round 2?
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about like the intuition part again, because it's so interesting. Like I didn't know if I was going to be able to have a home birth, because my road to get pregnant was so crazy. And I'm like, who is going to support me for a home birth? Is it even safe for me to have a home birth? Like I really had to check my ego. And I had numerous conversations with my husband. I was like, listen, if you at all don't feel like this is a good idea, we can go to the hospital. Like it was always, I wasn't going to like risk anything happening. So the first 20 weeks was rocky. Like I was nervous. Like we were getting tested all the time and making sure the baby was okay. And like, when you do IVF, they have you do all these extra tests. And I was like, do I want to do these extra tests? And I was like, okay, I made a decision. I'm going to do all the tests, and then at 20 weeks they do the big scan, like where they test for like everything, and like including Down syndrome, which is obviously a big one for someone my age. And everything came back good. They even had us do like an extra heart thing because he was IVF, and the doctor literally went, go home. He like looked at it for 2 seconds and he was like, you're fine, get out of here. And at that moment, up to that point, my doctor, I had a regular OB/GYN, and she was like, if you don't have this baby by 39 weeks, we're going to have to induce you. And I know what that looks like. The chance of having a natural birth once you're induced diminishes greatly, because it's so much more intense. It's like the fake hormones that they give you. It makes it so much more intense, and it's really challenging. So, and I noticed that she wasn't listening to me. I was like, well, and she kind of just started to shut me down a little bit. And that's all I needed to get a midwife. I was like, okay, I'm shopping for a midwife. I got the clear bill of health. He's good. I feel great. So I started shopping for a midwife, and all the midwives that I interviewed were so amazing. I was like, well, I'm old. I have IVF. I have rheumatoid arthritis. And they're like, that's nothing you're saying makes you not capable for a home birth. Like, there's actually very few things that make you not capable for a home birth. So I fell in love with this one lady, and it was just exactly what I needed, because again, most of this time I was alone, and she would come to my house once a week, and we would sit on the couch, and she would check the baby, and we would talk, and it was just the nurturing that I really needed. And as soon as I made that decision, it was like I was back 20 years. Like, I was so confident. I knew I was going to have a healthy, happy baby. I knew I was going to give birth at home. Like, there was not a doubt in my mind. Like, I felt like I had complete control. And I did the same thing with my first son. Talked to him a lot. We went on walks every day. I say this thing that I learned from my yoga teacher 20 years ago. I would say, head down, back to mommy's belly, chin to your chest. And I would say, you're in clear amniotic fluid. You're going to come when the time is right. We're going to work together. Like, I would do all this kind of talking and everything. And in my mind, so the reason why they like to induce you at 39 weeks, because the risk of stillbirth goes up, especially at my age. Even though it's actually very, very small, doctors love to induce you. There's a lot of reasons why, too, because doctors want to make it home for dinner. They get paid double for cesareans. Placentas are worth more if you do a cesarean. There's a lot of money behind why they make those decisions.
Interesting.
So in my mind, I was like, I think it would be really cool if you came at 39 weeks. Just so I don't have to deal with like the stress of like, you know what I mean? So I started taking like birth prep, tincture, and drinking a lot of raspberry tea, and doing all my things, walking. And I did feel like he was coming down, and I was like, I feel like he's going to come. Like, I feel like he's going to come before his due date, like right before his due date. And that morning, by the way, you guys, I was sick my entire pregnancy. So nauseous.
Really?
Not throwing up, just nauseous. Like, it was hard for me to eat the whole time, which that was the only part that sucked, because I was really looking forward to like having really cool cravings and just diving into like crazy food.
So you're nauseous the whole time, but you love being pregnant.
Yeah, I kind of separate the two.
Okay. Did you take anything anything help with the nausea?
I didn't take anything. There are things that you can take that I know a lot of women do. I mean, besides like, they say like magnesium and like B12, and like you can do things. I know a lot of women do take something, but I was like, I'm already taking so much shit. But I can deal with a little nausea.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. But this morning I woke up Well, the night before, I had my husband do some acupressure on me. I took this course called Evidence-Based Birth, which is a pretty cool course. It's all evidence-based. Um, it's really funny because all the couples were having hospital births, and by the end of it, I got all the couples to get midwives.
You have that
At
effect.
first, we were like the only home birth hippies. And my husband was like, why are we doing this course? We don't fit in. Like, this is so weird. And by the end of it, everyone had a midwife and everyone was doing not that that was all me, but the course actually shared a lot of interesting statistics. Like home births are actually safer than hospital births. Nobody talks about that.
What?
So anyways, I took this course and they give you this booklet that has acupressure points that you can start doing after maybe 38 weeks or something. So I said, why don't we try some of these pressure points tonight? So he did it. They were very simple, almost like headache ones and like just very simple. The next morning, I woke up and I was like, I'm starving. And he was like, really? And I was like, let's go get breakfast, like as a family. I just want to eat. And Devin was like, oh, he didn't want to go because he was like, I want to go to the grocery store and I want to prepare in case you give birth this week. He wanted to have food in the house. And I was like, you can go afterwards. Like, let's just go. I want to go with Kaleo. I want to do the whole family thing. So we go to breakfast and I started feeling extra nauseous where I was like, I can't even eat this. Like, I feel really weird, almost like period cramps. And I was like, huh. And I went home. Devin dropped me and Kaleo off. And I went home and I went to the bathroom and I had blood, which a lot of people don't know. But when you go into labor, sometimes you can have what they call a bloody show. So I was like, okay. And I had a little bit of like mucus, which I had that entire week actually, like a little bit of like mucous membrane coming. And so I was like, okay. And then I was like, this is graphic for everybody, but I was like, if I have, I am in labor. Because I remember with my first son, my body flushed me before I went into labor.
Yep.
And sure enough, 10 minutes later, I'm on the toilet just getting rid of everything. And I called Cleo. Cleo was downstairs in his room. He has like a separate room. And I called him and I was like, hey, honey, Devin's at the store. I just want to let you know, I think I'm in labor. Just FYI if I need you. And he's like, are you serious? And I'm like, yes. And he's like, okay. I was like, can you come up here in a little bit? Because we need to start like preparing. So I called Devin and I was like, it's happening. He's like, it's happening. And he's at the grocery store trying to get everything. And he's like, I got to get chicken soup. He wanted to make chicken soup for the midwives and everything.
Oh.
I was like, I'm fine.
And this is his first baby, right?
This is first baby. Yeah. Yeah. He totally trusts me though. Like he didn't know what was going on, but he just was like, she's done this before. She knows what she's doing. So he didn't really like do a lot of research or anything. I mean, I kind of like forced him to do this class with me and stuff. So he did know like the basics, but I can't remember the time frame. I think it was probably like 1:00 around this time. And they were just like Braxton Hicks, where like the uterus tightens and it kind of prepares the body for labor, which I had already been having for like a week, for weeks actually, but they were pretty intense. And I was like, I should start timing these out. And it was like 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 8 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes. I was like, and for an hour. So I was like, okay, I'm definitely in labor. So I called my midwife and she's like, okay, we'll head over. Everybody got to the house by 3:00 and it was her. She brought another midwife. And then I had a photographer who was also a doula. So everybody showed up. And by the time everyone got there, I couldn't talk during the contractions. Like I had to focus, So I was like, I'm definitely in labor. And it's kind of funny because my husband was making chicken soup and charcuterie boards. And I'm like literally in the corner, like with my medicine ball and my bolster. And I'm just kind of like, and everyone's just like talking. little did I know, I was going through like the transitional part of labor in that moment. I had no idea. I thought, because my first birth was 6 hours of true labor, which is pretty short. But I thought it would be around, I was like, oh, we're going to have time to eat and do, hang out and do some belly dancing. Little did I know, I was going through all the labor like by myself. And it got to one point where I was like, hey, honey, do you think you could help me?
Can we be done with the soup?
He's like, I'm almost done making the chicken soup. I was like, I think I need you. So he started to like rub my back. And then my midwife like knew everything that was going on just because she's like, do you want to have the baby in the water? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, I think we need to get the pool going then. And I was like, what? Like I couldn't comprehend that everything was happening so fast. So set up the pool. I hop in the water, 35 minutes of active pushing and the baby was here. I was like, I mean, it happened within like 3.5, 4 hours was the whole time. And Kaleo was with the dogs. We have a little guest house. So he was with the dogs in the guest house. And it was so funny because I said, I don't want you to be there. I mean, he's too old to like be there. Like it would have been awkward because I'm naked. I definitely want you to come in as soon as your brother's born, So Devin called him and said, it said something about, because he had ordered food. And he said, did you order food? And he said, yeah. And he's like, all right, well, when you're done eating, do you want to come up and meet your brother? And he's like, what? And so it was so cute. He came upstairs. He's like, it's the weirdest thing. Like 3 hours ago, nobody was here. And like now there's like a baby. And we captured the whole thing of him meeting for the first time. And it was just pure magic. And he was also born in the sac, which is like super rare. It's called an en-call birth. I didn't even know what that was. But it's like 1 in 80,000. It's very auspicious for good luck. So it was, the whole thing was just pure magic, you guys. And I'm so grateful again that I listened to my intuition and was able to have the birth that I wanted to have. Because that wouldn't have been an option in the other scenario.
Yeah. Wow. That's so beautiful. And I think it just like pays off to listen to your intuition. It really does. But you don't know when you're in it till after. Like so many things now you can look back and be like, good thing we did that thing. Good thing I listened to that. Good thing I talked to that. Good thing I went to that group. Good thing there's so many things looking back now, but when you're in it, I think that's so tricky, right? Are my hormones off? Am I hearing this message over and over for a reason, And so what's your advice to those people that are in the midst of the hormones, the medications, and thinking about that mix of hope and intuition, like how to tap into that in the midst of that?
I always say, my husband like makes fun of me, when I know, I know. When I know, there is no changing my mind. And if I'm on the fence, there lies the answer. I have no freaking clue. So I think that that sounds so ridiculous, but that's kind of like, especially at this point in my life, like I think the older you get, the more, the smarter you get with like listening to your intuition. And my whole body like shows up and I get very stubborn if I know something. I'm like, no, this is the way we're doing it. But if I don't know, then I'm open to other people's opinions and, or I do nothing until I know.
You're such a great example of this, because the first time we recorded with you, I was kind of hinting at that, like you probably were so lonely your whole life, thinking differently than everybody else. And you're like, I wasn't lonely. You have always had your own, like you've been so locked into your intuition your whole life, right? And you just have this unique ability to not just like try and listen to your intuition, but like find the facts too. Like you have this good mix of science and intuition. You pair them together beautifully and even create products from it, right? That we can all benefit from. But some people, they don't have that confidence. They don't have that like belief in themselves or that self-esteem that's like, I know best, you know? And so I worry about those people that are on this journey that, you know, I'm happy they can like get a piece of you and be like, okay, I'm going to be like Jessie today. I'm going to listen, you know? And so I just want to encourage you to keep sharing when you do have those intuition hits and how you feel them and how you know, because I think a lot of women struggle with that, or they have them and they just don't have that confidence to follow maybe the off-beaten path. You know, everybody's saying this, but I don't feel that way. You know, I think that's kind of a tricky spot to be.
I know what you're talking about. I think, you know, I think everyone has their strengths, and that I know that happens to be one of mine. And I know that some people struggle with that. But I can't, like, I would just say, like, you know, educate yourself as much as you can, and like surround yourself with people that you admire, that you, you know, that you like, especially with being pregnant. It's such a big one, and it's so fear-based. And I can't tell women enough, like, surround yourself with positive women. Don't surround yourself with women that have had horrific experiences when you're pregnant. Like, don't listen to the negative stories. Surround yourself with the positive stories. And it's so important, you know. I think when you're pregnant, everything's like magnified, everything. And it's such an opportunity for women to like really practice that, and then just take it into the rest of their life, like hanging out with people that you admire, and surround yourself with people you admire, follow people that you admire. And I think that kind of rubs off on you, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
I think
you.
that's
That's
with
good.
anyone,
Yeah.
whether you're pregnant or not. I think just my health journey, or anyone listening, it's, if you want to feel better, you need to surround yourself with that energy. Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it speaks to any avenue of health. I mean, there's some, Brooke and I are like, gosh, we want to talk to her for 6 hours. There's a million things we could ask her. And so something we talked about today, Brooke and I were like, let's start a new segment. We're going to play with it with Jessie, because we have so many questions we wanted to ask you just about life, health, all the things. And so we created something called Your Favorite Fix. And so we wanted to kind of ask you, first word that comes to mind, like your solution to different things in life. And so, you know, people that maybe aren't going through infertility right now or aren't on this journey, they're like, you didn't ask Jessie about skincare and she was on the podcast. We made a list of 10 things. So we're going to say something that has to do with health, or, you know, life in general.
Yeah.
And then you respond with like your favorite fix to that thing. Are you up for
I
it?
love it. Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, awesome.
You have our
So
list.
here's the list. Okay. First thing that comes to mind, favorite fix, Jessie. Fatigue.
Sleep.
Hair health.
That's all ridiculous, but yeah, sleep. Also, I learned this through pregnancy, which it's kind of like, check your iron levels. It's not talking.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's a good one. Hair health.
Minerals.
Low mood.
Lemon essential oil.
Okay. I love it. I knew you'd have some good ones. Skin breakouts.
Heal oil.
Iron.
Copper.
Detox route.
I would say detox route. God, there's so many. Lemon water in the morning.
Ooh.
Simple.
Poor sleep.
Poor sleep. No gadgets after dinner, and dim the lights, possibly get red lights, or use candles only after dinner.
Oh, I love that. Hormone health.
Minerals again.
What's your favorite mineral?
I love, like, you know, trace minerals. I'm taking this new one that I love that I have on my website. It's by Pearl Oral Health. It's called Silodin. and you just put it in your water, and I'm obsessed. Like, I think minerals run the show for hormone health and everything.
Okay, last one. It's a little different. Fulfillment.
Being productive.
Love it. That was fun.
That was good. I wish we would have did this years ago. Oh my gosh. Oh, well, before we wrap it up, we have our same last 3 segments as last time you were on. So Jessie, your 3 gold stars. If there was 3 takeaways you would want to leave our listeners with, what would they be today?
Oh, geez. Okay. I mean, I think we'll just play on the intuition since we're still there. And it's you have to be still enough and silent enough to actually hear your intuition. And there's so much noise these days. We're on our phone, we're on our computer, we're constantly. So like, at least give yourself 5 minutes of like no gadgets so you can actually, my favorite way to listen to my intuition is walking. Like just walking, and I get really clear. So the more you are able to listen to it and actually do what it says, like the stronger it'll get. So I think that's a big one. Second one, kind of like what we talked about, is just being your own advocate. Like you cannot, like you are the only person that's going to save yourself. So if you want something in your life, whether it's a relationship or health or a baby or, you know, whatever, you got to like make the steps every single day to make it happen. Like nobody's going to do it for you. And the last one, I feel like I always have a lot, but I'm a little brain.
No,
You also shared
you
much.
shared so many gold stars.
So important, you guys. Like I'm going to be 46 in a week. I have a 7-month-old, so I'm not sleeping that much. And I will tell you this, because with your 10 questions and I said sleep, you could do all the things. You could eat right, take all the minerals, exercise. If you are not sleeping right, everything goes to shit.
It's number one.
So yeah, like really optimizing your sleep is so important. And trying to go to bed like at a certain time, like 10 o'clock, and then actually waking up at the same time every day is really helpful. Dr. Huberman talks about that with the circadian rhythm, and like even on the weekends, trying to wake up at the same time. But I will tell you firsthand, for the first time in my life, my sleep is disrupted, and I definitely feel it.
Yeah, something you said too in your YouTube video, you talked about the difference with your last embryo transfer was that you rested after, and you laid down and you didn't do anything for days. And I thought that was really powerful to hear that.
And my husband was with me. It was the first time he was able to be there with me. And we played Enya. The doctor was like, do you want, we wanted to make it like more special. So he played Enya. My husband was there. We were laughing. And I was actually talking about this because I saw this video on Instagram, like the moment of conception. There's like this spark, right? And I have footage of Beowulf being dropped off, and there's a little spark of light.
Stop.
And we're all notice it. Like he's like, here I am dropping him off, you know. And there's this little ping. And I was like, oh my God, that's it. That's it. It's happening. What? And we went home, and he nurtured me, and you want to keep the womb warm, you know, when you get pregnant. So he made me all these yummy soups and foods and made me lay on the couch. And yeah, I think for someone like me, that's actually challenging because I'm not really good at resting. But having the support and resting, yeah, that all made the difference for sure.
Gosh, getting this inside scoop has been, ooh.
And it's always the things that are so simple, but not easy and free. I mean, not saying that this whole journey was not inexpensive by any means, but rest and love, you know, things that we take for granted. And it's like, those are the most powerful things. If you honor them and have the space in your calendar for them, like what could be different? How much better could life be if you were scheduling in time for connection and for rest?
I just thought of something. Abraham Hicks is one of my favorites. Do you
Mhm.
guys ever listen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Whenever I fall off, I just put her on in the morning, and she always goes back to joy.
Mm.
Like, it's not about like, I need to have a baby or I need to have a husband or I need my career. Like, instead of focusing on those things, all you need to do is focus on joy. Because when you focus on joy, it raises your vibration,
Mhm.
and then everything comes to you naturally. And so I always try and remind myself that simplicity.
Mhm.
Like, where can I find joy today? And it is more challenging when you live in a state that doesn't have sunshine every day. I will tell you that.
It sure is. But that's why we have these relationships and podcasts, and we have so many things like Abraham Hicks that you can quick put on. Like I talk about that all the time of when I am feeling low, when I'm feeling that depressed feeling of like, where is the joy? Having those quick go-tos. And you are that for us, Jessie. You are such a light. You have helped us. Oh, I'm going to get emotional like in so many ways. So thank you. I didn't think I'd cry. I thought you'd cry.
I mean, yeah.
Thank you so much. It's so sweet.
Yeah. All right. Just to keep the crying going. Let's go. Okay. So we always do Unleashing Ivy. So 3 surprise questions that we're just curious about. And I'm so curious about this post-delivery, 40 days in the home, just you and the baby. And I want you to just talk like, that is not what our culture does, right? We're back in the workforce 6 weeks later. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And so not everybody gets to do this, unfortunately, but would you talk about the importance of the 40 days at home post-birth and just what you experienced during that time?
Yeah. Oh, I actually did it with my first son, too, because I was introduced to it from Gurmukh, who is a famous yoga teacher. She was just becoming famous like 20 years ago when I was studying with her. And now she teaches Khalsa yoga prenatal classes all over the world. And she's amazing. She studied directly under Yogi Bhajan, and she's part of like who brought Kundalini yoga here. And I'm so grateful that she was my teacher. And she introduced me to the whole Khalsa way. And they talk about, that's where I was introduced to like staying home for 40 days and how, it's just so important to like have that bonding time. And, I think our culture, like you said, just rushes women. Like, you can do it all. You can have a baby and then snap right back and go back to work and da-da. But it's like, like, I'm so grateful to see this new feminine movement, which is more actually feminine, and being a mother and like cooking for your children and like doing all these homemaking things. Like, I'm loving it. Like, I don't want to hustle. So one of the beautiful things about having a baby at this point in my life is I was like, I am doing this. I can financially do it. I do get to work from home, and I did do a little work from home, but I did log off pretty much for the first 3 weeks. I set myself up. So I was like, I don't have to like really do anything. And I just think it's just one of the most beautiful things. You're never going to get that time back. I think it sets the foundation for the relationship. It allows you time to heal. There's with social media, news travels so much quicker. And now I've seen like these memes where they say like the first week is laying in bed, laying down in bed. The first thing is laying on, or the second week you're laying on the bed. The second week you're sitting on the bed. The third week you're around the bed. So it's like this whole thing of like just not really leaving the bedroom and just like nurturing yourself, like warming the womb and eating foods that help your digestive system in case you like had a cesarean or if you tore and you want to go to the bathroom easier, and just all the things, you're breastfeeding and just figuring it out. It's I'm also like kind of OCD, like with the baby. Like it's just for me, like I was like, he's too new to like have people touching him and like being in like the world. We did go for a little walks around the neighborhood, but other than that, we stayed home the whole time.
Yeah.
I love that. Permission to slow down and enjoy that time.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
so
It's
simple,
so
but
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, my question is, what advice would you give someone who isn't ready to get pregnant yet, but that is something they want in their future, but all of this information can be very overwhelming. So what advice would you give that person? Not saying it's me at all, but
Asking for a friend.
No, I mean, that's what's so cool about, science now and the things that they can do. They could probably do even more, but with a simple blood test, you can get your AMH levels and see what your reserve is. And if it's fine, you're like, good, I'm good, or if it's really low, maybe it's something that you look into for freezing your eggs. Like, it's so crazy for me to say this because, like I said, pre all of this, I was never really an advocate for IVF. And now, I wouldn't have my son if it wasn't for that. So, I think, again, just educate yourself. And the coolest thing is you can go to your OBGYN and say, I want to have kids at some point. Can I get my AMH levels tested? Or what else can I get tested for, for markers to see if I'm going to be okay in 2 or 3 years, what's your opinion? And just see what they have to say, because freezing your eggs is no joke. I think a lot of people, it's become so common, but you still have to do all the IVF drugs, and they're no joke. They come with side effects. So it is if you want to do that.
I love that. That's great advice. All right, last question. We asked you this the first time, so I'm going to change it a little bit. So if you could go back to younger Jessie, let's just say before you decided to try with Devin, what would you go back and tell Jessie then that you wish you would have known, that you know now that you wish you could tell her right before you started to try?
I wish I would have known how much rheumatoid arthritis could affect pregnancy. Because to be honest with you, I might not have had to actually do IVF. I could have just maybe done the reproductive immunology protocol and gotten pregnant. So because of my age, everyone was putting me in the category that you're over 35, it's probably a chromosome issue, and nobody was talking about rheumatoid arthritis. And that was the issue the whole time, I think. I mean, it still could have been a chromosome issue, but if I'd done the protocol and tried naturally, I might have also been able to have a healthy baby that way.
Yeah. But he's here and he's healthy and he's beautiful. He's got those blue eyes of yours. Oh my gosh, he's so cute. We can't get enough of that content.
Sometimes, like if I hold him up in the air from this angle, he looks like me. It's weird.
At a certain angle.
Oh.
Yeah, at a certain angle. I'm like, I see it. He looks like my baby picture. But it's so cute because Devin is the best dad on the planet. Like if I could go back and like have a dad, I would be like, Devin, would you be my dad? He's the best dad on the planet, and he's got his mini me, and he's just ecstatic. He's like, I obviously already have my mini me. My son is my twin. My other son is my twin. So I'm like, it's only fair.
Oh, we're so happy for you.
Yeah.
So happy.
And thank you for sharing, like I said before, just all these details. They all mean something. And obviously they're part of your story, but they could be a part of somebody else's, or just the tenacity behind that drive of like, if this is what you want, keep advocating for yourself. And we're so grateful to uplift you even more, to everybody that's following us, so they can have you as, whether it's with babies or their health journey or just an example of someone listening to their intuition. Like, it's so powerful. We're so grateful that we know you, and we're so honored to have you back. And just thank you so much for sharing all that you shared today.
You guys are so sweet. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Jessie, we live our listeners with a piece of gold. A quote that speaks to you. Would you please share yours and send us off today?
Take every obstacle as an opportunity to create more light. So I think we're always trying to avoid the obstacles, but that's where the opportunity actually lies for us to practice everything we've learned.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.
Oh my God.
Yay.
What a great quote.
You guys are locked in now. You guys know what to say and do.
I can't believe it's been 2 years.